listen, thanks for having me. Let me say this out of the gate. Y'all, I haven't won every race I've ever run, but by God, I had the plumbers and pipe fitters with me in every race I've ever run, and I'm not ever going to forget that. But whether you know me or not, y'all and I go back a ways. And when you go back a ways, you've got the opportunity to be blunt with people who have been with you for a long time. You know, y'all have always had my back, and you should know that I will always have yours. But folks, we need to shoot straight about what is at stake in about 5 weeks in this election. I know 100 million people watched the presidential debate the other night, and I know 99 million of them probably got indigestion the way I did. But folks, the Kentucky that we're living in and that we want to live in is going to be more impacted by who you vote for in your state representative race than it will be in the presidential campaign. Y'all, that's no joke. And it's not just about parties that are at stake this election. This isn't about whether the Republicans are going to do well or whether the Democrats are going to do well. This election in 5 weeks in Kentucky is about whether middle-class Kentucky is going to continue to exist. Now listen, I'm going to shoot you real straight. We all sat on our asses last election. 29% turnout. The lowest that we have seen in a generation. Our people didn't get out because we spent all our time trying to disqualify the other fellow. Now, I happen to believe what we said about Matt Bevin is true. That he doesn't like working people. That he doesn't like paying his taxes. That he has a hard time telling a consistent version of the truth. That he's a Yankee. By God, y'all, it's all true. But we didn't get it done because we didn't give our own people a reason to go to the polls last November, and we're suffering the consequences as a result. We have elected the most anti-middle class, working class governor this state has ever seen. Now y'all listen to me. This isn't what I'm saying about his agenda. Listen to what he's saying about his agenda. If they get control of the State House of Representatives, and this was a great video, but let me just lay it out for you all as plain as I can. We are the last state in the South to have a pro-working people legislative chamber. The only one in the entire South. And they're going all in, fellas. The poker chips have been pushed completely to the middle of the table. They have gone all in. They think they're sitting on aces. And they have said what they're going to do when they drag that pot back toward them. On the first day that they gavel in, they're going to pass the right to work law. Not my words, theirs. On the second day, they're going to repeal the prevailing wage, which has been the backbone of the working middle class in Kentucky for 20 years. On the third day, they're going to auction off our public schools to private corporations. On the fourth day, you're going to take away your right to stand up to bully corporations in the courts that are supposed to serve you. Folks, that is what's at stake. They call it an agenda for a new Kentucky. Bullshit. That's an agenda for a very old Mississippi, and we know the difference. And we know the difference. But we've got to talk straight to each other. We've got to tell each other the truth. And let me be honest with y'all. These old-timers who've been in labor for a long time, they're not going to do well if it goes the other way, but they're going to be able to crawl to the finish line because there will be a pension there waiting for them. But those of you who are under the age of 45, who've got kids to feed, tuition to pay, alimony to pay, it's not going to be so easy on you. This isn't about Republican or Democrat. This is about whether people in this state have a right to work for a living and be able to make a decent middle class living. That's what this is about. And folks, if you don't stand up for yourself, there is nothing any politician can do for you. You know, we laid down on the game last year and we got, frankly, what was coming to us. But what my message to y'all is now is that politics are too important to be left to the political class. Which is why Matt Jones and I brought in the New Kentucky Project, because we're trying to get new people involved. We got to have new blood and new energy to solve old problems. We've got to have people who are willing to go to the parking lot and scrape knuckles to stand up for working people in Kentucky. But guess what? If we're just speaking to Democrats, we'll never get there. The good news in Kentucky is there aren't enough Republicans to win an election. The bad news is there aren't enough Democrats to carry the day either. We've got to get beyond party and start speaking the language of value. Start talking to people about what they care about. A lot of people believe that folks who want to show up and work every day ought to be able to make a living. A lot of people believe that your kids ought to be able to go to college just the same as the doctor or lawyer's kids get to go to college. A lot of people think that our courts ought to serve regular people who work for a living rather than bully corporations. A lot of people believe that, but we've got to get out and take that message to them. You know, we learned last election what happens when you don't talk about what you're about. Folks, I believe in the values of Wednesday nights and Sunday mornings. That we are our brother's keeper, that we do owe a little something to each other in a civil society, that work does have dignity, that people who are willing to go to work every day and do work that hurts ought to have a system that is on their side. We've got to put government back on the side of the people who need it, and we've not done that. We've got to stand up for folks who get injured working every day. We've got to stand up for people who believe that there ought to be the equality of opportunity, a chance to realize the American dream in the communities that you've come up in. Folks, that's what we've got to fight for. That's what's at stake. And particularly you younger folks, we have got to get in and make this, because we're going to raise our kids in a Kentucky that is significantly different from the one that we inherited. Because the forces of big business are making a heavy push. And the question is, are we going to push back? Are we going to reach out to new people? You know, the days of raising a whole bunch of money and putting it up on the television and getting elected because people saw your ads more than the other guys are over. Do you know the most effective way to get a vote is now, these days? Social media. If the people in this room decide that they're going to use their Facebook and Twitter pages, or the Facebook and Twitter profiles of their spouses to help get the message out, the people in this room could reach 100,000 people in 2 weeks, folks. That's the way it works. It's peer-to-peer contact. It's you saying, these issues impact me, neighbor. I need you to be for them. Because, folks, equality of opportunity is what's in the balance. And I'll tell you why. If I seem passionate to you about the business of opportunity, it's because I am. I was born to a mother in Meade County, Kentucky, 2 months shy of her 17th birthday. My dad's a tobacco farmer. Was. He quit farming tobacco when I went to college, which was the worst deal ever. By the way, you know what you call somebody who worked in tobacco and said they liked it? A liar. I hated every minute of it, folks. But if we evaluated people and we guessed where they would end up based on where they started, nobody would have ever guessed that I would have gotten to go to college, that I would have gotten to be an aide to a governor, much less a chief of staff to another one, much less a statewide elected official. But you know why we were able to do that? Because America and Kentucky are still a place where potential matters more than position. And that the kid not born on third base ought to have the very same opportunities of economy and education that the kids born on third base. Folks, a lot of us weren't even born in sight of the stadium. But it's our job to make sure that ladder of opportunity exists for everybody. You know, I brought my 11-year-old boys here, twin sons, with me tonight. When I ran the first time, we filmed the commercial at the family farm there in Meade County. We filmed it on a Friday morning, which means my boys got out of school for the day. They were in kindergarten then. And the littler of the two, smaller of the two, Wade Edelen, speaks up from the back as we were on the way to Meade County to spend the night to film the ad the next day. And he said, you know, Dad, since we don't have to go to school tomorrow, I guess that means I don't have to do the alphabet worksheet I came home with tonight. Folks, he held it up like a dead snake. And I said, Wade Edelen, let me tell you something, boy. We Edelens always do our homework. It's the only way we get ahead. Boy, do your homework. And folks, that little 5-year-old out of the back raised his index finger and his eyebrow. I have no idea where he learned it. Yeah. And he said, well, let me tell you something, Dad. He said, tomorrow I'm going to look in that TV camera and say, folks, he's mean to me and he'll be mean to you. Hand to God, that's a true story. I had a lot of opportunities coming up because Kentucky was a place where people who wanted to work hard could make sure that opportunities existed for their kids. And folks, as a result, I've been able to enjoy benefits and enjoy experiences and advantages in my life that were not available to the generations that came before me. Every generation is tested, my friends. And brothers and sisters, we are being tested right now. The degree to which we work over the next 5 or 6 weeks is going to determine whether our kids are going to have the same opportunity to realize the American dream that in the communities they've come up in. It's going to determine whether a whole lot of people who work for a living are going to get to keep their health care. It's going to determine whether or not projects that use public money are going to have to use the hands of organized labor to build it. And I would make the business case that that's very good, because you know what the difference between organized labor and everybody else is? Is that the union folks get it right the first time. They get it right the first time. We're not going to get a second chance in Kentucky, friends, if we blow at this election. It is just that critical. You have stood with me in every election I've ever run, folks, and I've always tried to stand up for you. But this is a time where we've got to stand up for each other, and you all got to stand up for yourselves, because it absolutely hangs in the balance. So make sure you get to the polls this fall. Make sure you take all your family members, including the idiot cousin you don't like. This election is so important, you need to reach out to ex-wives and ex-husbands. Because your ability to realize and provide for your family hangs in the balance. They've got a state senate that has a supermajority that is anti-labor. Folks, Matt Bevin is the worst friend of organized labor that we have, the biggest enemy of organized labor that we've seen anywhere in an awful long time. All that hangs in the balance is the State House of Representatives. We've got to hold it. We've got to do the right thing. I'm going to do my part. I know you will. Let's stand up and fight, because the future and our people are worth it. Thank you all a whole lot.